I think we got enough about us to stay up. Granted, we took no points from this weekend, but I thought there was enough about us to suggest we probably should have done, were it not for, I think, an individual error in defence and some woeful finishing up top. But I think generally we've probably got a bit better finishing in us than that. I think we've seen that anyway. We've got enough goals within the team to stay up. And teams that go down generally struggle to score goals. I don't think that would be in us. I also think that there's enough fight in the dog. And I'd look at the performances against Liverpool, against Southampton, and latterly Arsenal for it to give me some hope and some expectation that we'll do all right. I also like the consistency that we've seen with David Moyes in terms of formation and team selection. So I think, look, there's things that need to be done next season. We know this. If we stay up, it'll be because teams have been worse than us rather than us being any good. There's a lot, the infrastructure at the club, we've discussed all this before. There's lots and lots of things that will need to be changed. But in terms of us, hanging on by the skin of our teeth, it's all about this season. It's all about winning. It's all about surviving. So with that in mind, maybe it's just me. And please do let me know if you think I'm being overly sensitive here on this. I was having a little scroll through the internet and found us to be linked with another manager, and it was I think it was the terminology and the way it was all phrased. Now, the report has come from somebody called Sport Witness. Now, I don't know Sport Witness. I don't read Sport Witness. I guess it's not a paper. I guess it's a website. And it goes on to say that we've been linked with Verona's manager, Ivan Juric. I probably pronounced that wrong enough, folks. Ivan Juric. That's as good as you're getting. It goes on to say, Hammers sacked manager Pellegrini late in December. He was replaced by David Moyes on an 18-month contract. We know this. David Moyes won his first game in charge, 4-0 win on Bournemouth. However, since then, the only other win has come against Southampton and a 3-3 draw against Brighton. It's reported that the Hammers' continued flirtation with relegation under Moyes has pushed the club's decision-makers to make contact with possible alternative bosses for the summer. Now, let's just go with that there. I wouldn't expect that not to be the case. I would expect us to be putting the feelers out and looking for other managers. In fact, I would have expected that to have been done when it was quite clear, perhaps as far back as October, when Pellegrini was struggling. The very fact that we reverted back and we chose David Moyes, I wasn't happy with. I thought that was a surprise. What has surprised me is the fact that it has been leaked. And I'm looking at it now, and I've seen it on Claret and Hugh there as well. They didn't write the story, but they have run with the story. And I do think Claret and Hugh has enough close context within the club that if something is rubbish, and if they don't agree with it, they'll turn round and they'll quite blatantly say, look, we can just dismiss this. But the fact that it's up there and the fact that it's just above another article which says David Moyes is moving dangerously close to Avram Grant's record, it's not a it's not a particularly encouraging piece to read, and it's certainly suggesting that maybe David Moyes is about the standard of Avram Grant.
Well, I never pass up an opportunity to do a bit of charity work to help clean up the oceans. All that plastic and pollution makes it terrifically difficult to sail my yacht.
Now, just to be totally fair, below that is an article about how our stats against Arsenal were so impressive. But I just don't know what's going on with the club at the moment. Now, we've been doing these videos for long enough that people will know that I didn't want David Moyes. I didn't want him the first time. I didn't want him the second time. But he has been given the impossible job. Bearing in mind he's been given the job, you've got to get behind him. You've got to support him, and you've certainly got to hope for the best. I'm certainly not one of these people that hopes we get relegated because then we can get rid of David Moyes, or that we feel that maybe the board will have to sell out. I just don't want us to get relegated. Do I want the board out, ideally? Yes, but I prefer us to stay up, for the club to be worth more than it would be in the Championship, for them to get a lucrative offer, and for them to sell up. That's what I want. Would I prefer us to have, the next young, up-and-coming attacking manager? Yes, I would. But make no mistake about it. Last time round, David Moyes kept us up. And then he got the boot. And David Moyes would probably feel he didn't deserve the boot. He probably deserved another crack at the whip. Whilst I didn't want him to stay, he probably did. And I think if David Moyes keeps us up this time, I think he probably deserves to keep the job. I think that's only fair. So I don't like the fact we've been linked with other managers at this point. Because number one, I think it's unfair on David Moyes. And number two, I think it does us no favours at all. I think it does no favours for the harmony of the training ground, the players, the coaching staff that have been put in place. And you've got to look what's happened when David Moyes has walked into this job. David Moyes has walked into this job, let's be fair, I reckon he was probably only appointed because nobody else wanted the job. I reckon if you were a manager or an agent and you've been looking at the goings-on at West Ham over the past few years, you would probably not fancy working for us. Now, I'm not going to blame it all on the owners. Yes, I do think that I would imagine you wouldn't particularly be enamoured at the thought of going to work for David Sullivan, work for Karen Brady. I don't think that's an appealing thing. But I don't think you'd also look at the toxicity of the fans as well and the fact that we're unhappy as well. And then you'd look at the stadium and you think all those three things, fans, owners, stadium, it's not, sorry, not fans, fans, owners, stadium, it's not happy. It's not a happy place to be. I would probably be looking at other jobs if that were me. So I think possibly David Moyes was the only show left in town. I think there was a bit of humble pie probably being eaten by both. I think Sullivan probably had to eat a bit of humble pie to approach David Moyes and say, look, maybe I got it wrong last time. We'd like to have you back. I think David Moyes has had to swallow his pride a little bit and take the job. I would imagine David Moyes would have much rather been given the Everton job, stuck two fingers up at David Sullivan and said, no, you should have kept me on the first time. With that in mind, we are led to believe that David Moyes wanted Stuart Pearce in. Now, whilst the club have denied that they vetoed Stuart Pearce coming in, Stuart Pearce suggested that David Moyes did want him there. Stuart Pearce suggested that he wasn't permitted to come back because he criticised the owners. It's up to you who you believe, of course. But that story is out there. That's not... I've not made that story up. Stuart Pearce says one thing, the owners say another. You believe who you want. But anyway, let's say... David Moyes, at least initially when he came in, wasn't allowed the coaching staff or didn't get the coaching staff that he wanted. We know that, whether you believe the Stuart Pearce story or not. We know that because it was only him and Alan Irvine for such a long time. We were hearing talks, rumours that it might be Ginger Pele might come in. There was the Joe Cole stuff. It took a little while before he was able to get Paul Nevin and Kevin Nolan through the door. Now he has, I think. I'm not going to... Look, Charlie's video the other day was good. Don't get me wrong. I agree with a lot of what Charlie was saying there. But I do think there was an uplift of just having more lieutenants around him. You know, David Moyes, more personalities around there. I just think we've seen an uplift in... Maybe that's helped with the decision-making process where we seem to be jumping from a 3 at the back to a 4 at the back. Maybe the new coach is coming in, fresh ideas. Maybe they're saying to him, let's stick with this. And it just seems to be a happier place, doesn't it?
This man knows nought about tactics. There's your ruddy bubbles.
But my point is he didn't walk into something straight away and it was easy and it was all set up and laid out for him. I think he's had a little bit of a struggle. And they did seem... Maybe David Moyes a little bit isolated at the start. Just him on the training ground. It seemed like he was putting out the bibs, putting the bibs on the players, putting out the cones, him and Alan Irvine. And then the story which I spoke about initially about there only being one scout at the club, only one first team scout. We do have academy scouts. And then it was leaked, wasn't it, if you remember, that West Ham were advertising for a scout on a volunteer basis. It wasn't a paid position. All that came out, and then probably a month after that, we find out a story that when David Moyes came into the club, he wanted to have a look at all the scouting analytics. He wanted to know which players the club had scouted with a view to the January transfer window coming up. He was shocked to find out there was no scouting data. There was no players logged. There was none of that because the previous technical director, the previous management team and the scouts, when they'd all been dismissed under the umbrella of Pellegrini, they'd taken all of the data with them. Why? Because it wasn't data, it was all on a pad and all that sort of thing. Okay? So anyway, I think that, again, he's got his hands tied behind his back. So I can understand with that in mind why we haven't made signings until quite late into the January transfer window. He's had to basically go, I would imagine, lean on old contacts and find out Souček. Apparently Souček was not on the club's radar before. So he's probably, I don't know, called up some old scouts that he might have knew at Everton or whatever the case may be. He's had to do it despite the club rather than because of the information that was already there. You also look at it, he's looked at the training ground, and one of the first things he's done is he's moved the ladies team out of the training ground, moved them to Chadwell Heath and taken the under-23s and moved them to train alongside the first team. We've seen the fruits of that straight away, by the way. Look at Ngakia. He is in there. So you've seen the benefit of that. My point is David Moyes has not walked into an easy job. I think he's taken it because it was possibly the only job on offer to him. But it wasn't easy. I think with that in mind, if he does keep us up, he does deserve another crack at the whip. My choice? No. Because I tell you what, we need this man at the moment. Because if anybody is going to put a scouting infrastructure in place, it will be him. I'm not saying that another manager wouldn't come in and do it, but I just think if we stay up and we get rid of David Moyes, then the next manager comes in. We've got to do the whole director of football thing again. We've got to get more scouts. We've got to do all the rest of it. I think maybe it might be mutually beneficial for all of us if he stays in and does the next season, at least. And you know what? I've got to be honest with you. If he does a good job, and if he plays in the manner that I've seen us play, and against Arsenal in particular, against Southampton, Liverpool was better as well. If we play like that, and we're going to attack, I don't mind so much. I don't blame him for the Arsenal thing. I think as a manager, he got it spot on. Yes, I'd have liked the substitutions a little bit earlier. A number of people have said it. But I thought the players lost that game. I thought the players did magnificently for most of the game. They kept us in the game, you might say. Took it to us. We had... The stats are there. What did we have? I probably should have scrolled down and seen that. The stats against Arsenal. We had 14 shots. They had 9. We had 6 shots on target. They had 2. We had 7 corners. They had 6. They had more fouls than us. If you're going to continue to do that, I ain't got a problem. Keep him on. It brings a bit of positivity around the club. But with that in mind, I do think the last thing we need is to be linked with other managers. If we get relegated, fine. I mean, it's going to have to be done. But I tell you what, there will be a massive overhaul required. If we get relegated, I don't think we're coming up anytime soon. That being said, the academy, whilst I do criticise the club quite a lot, the academy is doing very, very well at the moment. Something has gone on right there. I have a suspicion it was what Terry Wesley put in place. In fact, I'm going to do a video about that probably this week about the academy anyway. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're a bit... I've got a couple of things to ask, actually. First of all, our Patreon. If you want to sponsor the channel, if you want to help us out, if you want to help pay the electric bill for the lovely Moody lights there, then please do click on the link below. You can support us on Patreon for as little as $3.50 a month. You get additional content. You get discounts off. We're starting to add more products to the club shop. We got t-shirts coming out soon. We've had the mugs, the world class, the next level mugs. You've seen those, haven't you? And you get all the additional content as well. The other thing, I was only joking about the lights, by the way. They're LEDs. I don't want people to think I'm not environmentally friendly. They take it. It's these ones that you can't see that are the juicy ones, by the way. The other thing I would really appreciate you doing for me is my mate, Canning Town Lem, has got a channel, okay, and he needs 1,000 subscribers. I know it sounds a bit needy and a bit beggy, a bit, oh, please, sir, can I have some more? A bit Orphan Oliver. To say he needs them, he doesn't need them so as he can say he's got 1,000 subscribers. When you get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, it opens up this whole other menu system, and it's going to help when he brings out his next film if he's got 1,000 subscribers, basically. It gives him a few other options rather than just Amazon Prime which his most recent film went on. Anyway, that's about it. Let me know what you think about the David Moyes thing in the comments below. There'll be a link up there, possibly, if not in the description, for Cantown Lane's channel. If you could give it a subscribe, that'd be very much appreciated. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you then.